Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles. I'm going to talk about the EA sale. Did a video a couple of days ago. It was a clip from the live stream, the DREZZED live stream. We're doing those again on Clownfish TV. And we talked about the sale. It is now official. EA has announced an unprecedented $55 billion sale to Saudi Arabia, Jared Kushner's private equity group, Silver Lake, some other companies. None of these companies, none of these individuals seem to be quote unquote pro woke. So now gaming journos are flipping out because they're assuming the worst. They're assuming that because of this, there aren't going to be any more women or gay people in EA games. And it's a lot of like doom and gloom and panic. And let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Go out to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com. And keep up with our content. We're going to get some more videos posted over there for you guys. We also have some paywalled podcast content over there, news.clownfishtv.com. If you go out, look at the headlines about EA and put in EA LGBTQ, and you're going to see lots of people panicking, thinking they're going to take all the gay content out of The Sims, and they're going to stop letting women be the lead characters in games. I do believe that this might be a reversal of some of the DEI trends because, again, private equity firms, BlackRock or whatever, venture capitalists, when they're publicly traded, they got to answer to these people. And sometimes they got to do certain things to make those people happy now that they've got the Saudis and Silver Lake and Jared Kushner, who is Trump's son-in-law, I think. Yeah, involved. It might change things, but I think they're going to ultimately, at the end of the day, chase money, which means lots of loot boxes, I'm sure. But let's take a look at some of these headlines, and we'll get into Kotaku's take on this, that they're freaking out. Let's see here. This is Forbes. I got that one pulled up too. Why EA's $55 billion Saudi deal could impact LGBTQ plus games. This one from eTechnics. Andrew Wilson literally told all women in EA to F off. EA boss says company's values, quote unquote, won't change following the Saudi takeover. EA employees are voicing concerns over the buyout. It goes on and on and on. Here are some of the reactions from Kotaku. They said the internet reacts to EA's $55 billion sale to some of the worst people around. The publisher has announced that it's being acquired by PIF, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners. This after reports spread last week that Electronic Arts, the publisher behind The Sims, BioWare's catalog, and most of your favorite sports games, was being acquired for over $50 billion in a joint venture between Saudi Arabia's private investor fund, Silver Lake, and the Jared Kushner-owned Affinity. The company has officially confirmed the deal. If approved, the acquisition would be one of the most expensive in the history of the video game industry and would make Electronic Arts a privately held company. I think this is very, very important. I think a lot of these AAA studios blew themselves up chasing the mythical infinite profit margin, right? Like you're not going to be able to make more money quarter after quarter forever, right? There are only so many people. There's only so much money. And a lot of these companies have come off the rails, again, trying to make the investors happy. And it comes at the expense of gamers. It comes at the expense of consumers, right? They start cutting corners, start cutting people, start cutting quality to make more money quarter after quarter. And they do live, for the quarter. It's like, it's not good enough to tell an investor, hey, this game's going to be really sweet if we could just push it back, a year or two and work on it more. They don't want to hear that. They're like, no, we expected this game to come out for Christmas because record profits, right? And then when the game falls flat on its face because it wasn't ready for prime time, see also Star Wars Outlaws, see also, Assassin's Creed Shadows, a lot of these games, Ubisoft games, I think that was driven by investors wanting these games to come out, within a certain window. They fall flat in their face. That damages the company further. And then it just becomes this tailspin, right? And this happens, even outside of video games, happens with movie studios, happens with book publishers, game publishers, tabletop game publishers. I think they're better off being privately held, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, because I think you can trace the as Cory Doctorow called it, the enshittification of media back to corporate ownership. It said, given the questionable ownership, the internet's not taking it well. Saudi Arabian government's attempts at sports washing away the stink of its dire human rights laws. Oh, Kotaku has evidenced by its investments in various facets of the video game industry are well documented. Its money runs so deep that it has investments and ownerships in things like fighting game tournament Evo, the Esports World Cup, and even Pokemon Go. Yes. Now it has a lot of money, one of the biggest video game publishers on the planet. Of course they do. And the internet is worried about what it means, not just for the games, but for the people working under EA's umbrella. Mike Bithell says, back in my day, EA bought things and dismantled them, not the other way around. Luke Plunkett says this feels catastrophic in ways few other big industry deals have. Chris Bratt says Jared Kushner, the PIF, and $20 billion of debt being dropped on the balance sheet. This one feels mega grim. I really don't think people realize how bad the Saudis and Trump's nephew, it's actually his son-in-law, controlling the stable of IP held onto by EA is for the art form. If you think mainstream gaming was stale before, now it's going to be owned by the most conservative people on the planet. This is a very interesting turn of events. I talked about this with social media too, and it's like they just played the Uno reverse card, because for the longest time we had a lot of left-wing or far-left groups owning most of the media. And now all of a sudden, within the last year or two, it seems like everything is flipping to the right. It's very, very weird to see. I mean, this happened with X. Twitter became X. Twitter was definitely a very progressive, I'm using air quotes here, space. And then Elon Musk bought it, and it's definitely gone more to the right. And the same thing is going to happen to TikTok. Right. So you've got TikTok now is owned by a lot of the same people. It's very weird to see. And then all of a sudden we had Mark Zuckerberg deciding he liked Trump. It's like, I don't know what's going on here. Everything is very, very weird. It's just the winds of change. Basically, these businesses realize everyone's had enough of left-wing politics, and now they're gonna pivot back to the right. That's the nature of the beast, right? Jason Schreier says it's official. EA is going private. The leverage buyout will be financed by a staggering $20 billion of debt, which means some aggressive cost cutting is ahead. Yeah, that's the thing. Every time there's a merger, it doesn't matter if it's political, not political, whatever. There are always people that get cut. Always people that get cut. A lot of people are understandably focused on the Saudi Arabian Kushner part of it, but the far bigger immediate impact will come from the new private EA being on the hook for $20 billion in debt. That can mean mass layoffs, more aggressive monetization. Oh boy, EA is the worst already when it comes to that, and other big cost-cutting measures. TB Skyan says EA owns BioWare, Respawn, System Shock, Dead Space, Need for Speed, classics like Ultima and Wing Commander. I wish to God they did not own Ultima because they haven't done anything with it. I would love to see another online Ultima. I would love to see it, preferably 2-ish D. But people are still playing Ultima Online after all these years. And of course, the Sims folks are going to be the most affected. We'll get there. So many more games and franchises will now be subject to the control of the Saudi royal family. This business model should be flatly illegal, says Micah. Taking on a bunch of debt to buy a company and then burning the company to the ground to service that debt while paying yourselves huge fees is purely a destructive practice. Has never once had a positive outcome. Ask Joanne Fabrics how that works, I guess. Ban it completely. All right, so here's where it gets into the weeds. Here's where it gets into the politics of it. Given Saudi Arabia's treatment of queer people, a fair bit of concern has been extended specifically to the Sims and to BioWare, the developer of Mass Effect and Dragon Age. Mass Effect and Dragon Age, the last couple of games have been huge failures because of the politics that they put into them, in part. All of which have been trailblazers for queer representation in video games. EA CEO Andrew Wilson has stated in an email to staff that the company's values and its commitment to players and fans around the world remain unchanged. But considering that both the Saudi Arabian government and Jared Kushner, the owner of Affinity Partners, and Donald Trump's son-in-law now own the publisher, that's not exactly convincing. As long as he's there, who's to say he's going to be there, right? I mean, I think it's going to be a top to bottom gutting of EA, and they're going to try to pivot to profit with it. Remember, guys, the Saudis own wrestling too. So, I mean, they like money. So, Nash says, this is Mass Effect, Dragon Age, The Sims, and every other title that might possibly even be the sliced bit queer getting killed dead. The Sims makes money. The other two are basically dead franchises at this point, but The Sims still makes money. Things will not be unchanged at EA, says Ben Hansen. Trick Weeks says, buyers, so your games, guns and football. Yes. EA, mostly guns and football. Yes. Buyers, no gay stuff, no politics we're not going to like. EA, haha, definitely not. Hey, could you give me 1 second? I just need to shut down the studio real quick. They're definitely going to shut down studios. BioWare, they think for sure is going to get gone, but they've had nothing but flops lately. I mean, things are going to change. They are, but there's so much like doom and gloom. Wired, EA tried to stop an anti-DEI mod for The Sims 4, but more keeps surfacing. This is back in May of 2025. But now the mod's probably going to be an official one. I mean, I'm just saying, like, yeah, I mean, people were upset about Disney and the Saudis building a park in Saudi Arabia, and how they sidestepped that was they're like, oh yeah, we're working with this third party and they can do whatever they want. So, this is coming from NME. EA bosses, company's values won't change. People are like, sure, Jan. I said fans are worried about the future of the LGBTQ plus friendly franchises such as The Sims and Mass Effect with same-sex relationships still illegal in Saudi Arabia. In 2022, Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness was banned. I didn't know that. I forgot about that. It was banned in Saudi Arabia over the inclusion of a queer character in the film, while Eternals was also banned in the country due to a same-sex kiss scene. It depends on how integral it is to the plot, because I know like a lot of animated movies, they basically make objectionable scenes for overseas audiences able to be cut out easily. Like it's kind of like an add-on for the US audiences at this point. Alyssa says, this isn't Alyssa Mercante, is it? Alyssa says, let's be very clear. If EA sells out to Saudi Arabia's PIF, The Sims, and every EA game will be tied to a fund directly controlled by Mohammed Salman. It's regime linked to murder, slavery, genocide, and oppression of women, and the execution of LGBTQ plus people. But maximum profits, right? Let's see. Metro has it. People are very upset about it. What else we got? Here's EA employees voicing concerns over the buyout. This is coming from simscommunity.info. Yeah, I would say of all the games, The Sims is looking at potentially being the most affected. We know The Sims is very progressive and inclusive, and like I don't even think they have. Do they have gender in Sims? I don't even think they have gender in Sims. I think you just basically make your Sim by body type and voice type. I think I haven't played Sims 4 very much. Trusted source reports on sentiments inside the EA developer team. Okay, this is coming from Stephen Totillo. He got to speak to some people under the condition of anonymity. Two anonymous employees at EA voiced that they're very concerned about this acquisition. One saying they're afraid of layoffs that might occur with this buyout, and the other saying that it feels like a big FU to all women and LGBTQ plus employees. In his note to workers, Wilson said that our values and our commitment to players remain unchanged. Okay, that did convince one current EA worker who told GameFile that Andrew Wilson basically said F you to all women and LGBTQ employees at EA with this deal. Speaking anonymously because they were not authorized to discuss company matters publicly, they also said it shows just how many people have been collateral this past year for executives to make out rich. Nothing feels great, and we know when the deal closes, it's going to get worse before it gets better, if better is even possible. They're going to fire a bunch of people. They're definitely going to fire a bunch of people. Another said, I'm nervous about what this means in terms of workforce once the deal is closed, as layoffs usually follow those type of acquisitions. On a personal level, those future owners are not in line with my values and beliefs. Yes, The Sims will probably get a lot less gay, if I had to guess. We'll see. But this is coming from Forbes. Why EA's $55 billion Saudi deal could impact LGBTQ plus games. They're really freaking out about this. I think the bigger issue to start is going to be all the people that are probably going to get fired, because you never have an acquisition like this where people don't get gone. And they have a lot of underperforming studios. I mean, if EA just focused on being the best EA they could possibly be, but they started to kind of go down the path of, Disney and so many other companies, Microsoft, and they just started acquiring all these studios. And there's just a lot of dead weight, right? They said it's still too early to tell what kind of impact this acquisition will hold for the future of EA games and the games industry. A Reddit user asked, "Am I the only one who's scared by EA being purchased by family as conservative as Kushner and the Saudis? Will future BioWare games backslide massively on queer themes and LGBTQ plus inclusion and other woke things?" Yeah, they'll shut down BioWare. I think people are already thinking they're going to shut down BioWare completely. So, I mean, look, Dragon Age the Veilguard was a massive failure. And people are blaming the overt gender identity politics, whatever, for that. Like, that was the marketing for the game. And it failed. And they're going to look at that, and they're going to be like, hey, this game failed. And they might not explicitly state this is why we think it failed. They're just going to be like, yeah, it failed. And you know what, BioWare? Yeah, you're toast. This person says it's going to wreck the Sims franchise because it's been a welcoming, safe space for all. None of those companies support a model that you can expect some major changes down the road. Expecting them to root out any and all LGBTQ plus IA content. Sad day. I don't know if they'll do that. But I don't think the Saudis are going to be real keen on it. I'm going to be honest. EA as a whole has been supportive of LGBTQ plus rights. As a company, we're united that trans rights are human rights, et cetera, et cetera. It might be a case of like the content's there, but they're not going to be allowed to explicitly talk about it. They're not going to be putting their, pride flags up in June or whatever. I don't know. Or they'll just double down sports games and not even mess with this other stuff. I have no idea. They said, oh, okay. So this is interesting. They're talking about Fatal Fury. Okay. With all that being said, there hasn't been any signs that Saudi-backed studios would actually remove this content. However, a fighting game that was released this year, that's right, they own part of SNK. Fatal Fury City of Wolves gives a glimpse as how Saudi ownership can impact future game content. The game is developed by SNK, who's owned by the Misk Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization established by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Salman, is that what it is? Salmon? I don't know. I don't pay attention to Middle East politics. I really don't. The Crown Prince, Saudi Crown Prince. There we go. One of the playable characters in the game is Cristiano Ronaldo, the soccer player. It's common for fighting games to include guest characters. Okay. Ronaldo has absolutely no connection to fighting games, let alone Fatal Fury. The only connection is that Ronaldo currently plays for the Saudi Pro League club. Okay. His inclusion is to apparently broaden the appeal of the series and reach more players. I would. Okay, but that's actually not that big of a deal because it's very common in fighting games to have guest characters. Remember, famously or infamously for Soul Calibur back in the day, they had three different versions, I think, of it. The Nintendo GameCube version had Link and so you had to buy like the GameCube if you wanted to play as Link and Soul Calibur. But even going back to like freaking G.I. Joe back in the 80s, we had sports tie-ins. We had the fridge. You could buy the fridge, not the refrigerator, but William Perry, the football player, right? And we had Sergeant Slaughter from wrestling. And these were like mail-away figures. You get the little coupons with your G.I. Joes, and I actually have a carded Duke that still has the Sergeant Slaughter mail-in thing. But that was the thing that they did back then because they know that, soccer is big. And I wouldn't be surprised if they got like some F1 racers or something like that to tie in. And it's kind of a weird choice to put, Ronaldo in Fatal Fury, but they have access to those characters. I would actually like to see some WWE characters or something. If we're going to do that, and I got to tell you, I hate that Mortal Kombat has basically become Warner Brothers Smash Brothers, like Warner Smash Brothers, and like all these Warner Brothers characters from movies and stuff are in Mortal Kombat. I hate that. I think it takes you out of the game. But they said, yeah, switch up is strange considering how adamant Ubisoft was the game won't receive DLC. So criticism has been levied against the Esports World Cup earlier this year. Saudi investment. Okay, so here's the thing. And they admit this. So far, Saudi investment companies have made rather innocuous decisions, such as the case of Ronaldo in the fighting game and DLC expansion set in ancient Saudi Arabia. Hopefully, we won't see any rollbacks on LGBTQ plus representation. They're basically just assuming the worst before knowing what the hell is going to happen. But I'm going to tell you, given that everybody that's investing in EA is conservative or conservative leaning, they're probably right. I'm going to be honest. They're probably right. You got Jared Kushner. You've got Silver Lake, which is Egon. I can't remember his last name off the top of my head, but he is a very close financial partner to Elon Musk. And then you've got the Saudis. I mean, like I said, you're probably not going to see any pride postings in June. Just saying. Now, that being said, it will be interesting to see what happens with EA if under private ownership, they can turn things around a little bit. I mean, I know their stock price is doing pretty good, but yeah, I would like to see EA just be the best EA they possibly can be. Be the EA from like 20 years ago, not the predatory AAA studio that they are now, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. We're going to wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later. For more pop culture news, views, and rants, go to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com.